Good morning, everybody. Core Use Bloody History. So we're going to continue on today with the testimony of Marguerite Oswald. Some fascinating stuff going on here. Just so you're aware, my new book is about halfway finished. I only plan on writing a 250-page book, but I'm at page 200, and I haven't even gotten to Oswald moving into the Collinwood address yet in 1956, and I haven't touched the 150 plus pages that it's going to take for me to get through Oswald and the Marines. So my seemingly 250 page book is going to be at minimum 350 pages, full size, 8.5 by 11, full of documents, photographs, and everything else needed to make the case. So I anticipated that being done sometime in mid-June. That seems like a somewhat realistic release date. But we shall see. Definitely by July. But this thing has just become a much bigger project than I anticipated. When I first started, I kind of was just going to do documents with a little commentary on each one. But that documents with a little commentary has morphed into a full-fledged book, plus pictures. So, yeah, this being a 350 to 400-page book is starting to become more of a reality. But you guys are going to be fucking blown away when you see it. When you guys get this thing in your hand, it is going to be unbelievable. You're going to be shocked at what I've put together. So, all right, let's continue on with the testimony of Marguerite Oswald. Now, Lee, I know, also was in the Air Force of the Marines, and he went to Biloxi, Mississippi for schooling. Lee has had quite a bit of schooling, and Lee spoke Russian equivalent to 1 year when he defected to Russia. I have that on his application from the Albert Schweitzer College. And Lee spoke and wrote Russian fluently when he went to Russia. So Lee learns Russian in the Marines. Did he ever talk about re-enlisting in the Marines after he returned? Well, when Lee returned, he was with me 3 days. And then, of course, he went over to visit Robert's house. So actually, we didn't talk. I was trying to find a home, and I didn't think he would go. I was hoping that Lee would not go on the ship and work. I was hoping he would stay home. We were interrupted before when he said to me about that he wanted to work on a ship in the import-export business. I started to tell you I agreed with him. And this is how you have to do, particularly when you're a woman. A father could tell the man, you're not going to do this, but I went along with that. And then the next day I said, Lee, why don't you stay? And I went into that until I settle my claim and I can babysit and we can get along. He said, no, my mind is made up. If I stay, we will both be in these circumstances. Hang on a second. She's talking about the period when he comes back from the Marines at the late September 59. And she says, a father could tell the man, you're not going to do this. But I went along with that. And then the next day I said, Lee, why don't you stay? And I went into that until I settle my claim and I can babysit and we can get along. Babysit for who? Lee doesn't have any kids, right? So who the fuck is she babysitting for? Is she saying she's going to go out and get a job as a babysitter? Well, why would she do that? She allegedly works in retail. Oh, no, she works as a nurse. Oh, no, she works at a department store. Oh, no, she works taking care of sick people. You see what I'm saying? Babysit for who? Who the fuck is she talking about? He said, no, my mind is made up. If I stay, we will both be in these circumstances. So on the third day, I knew we wanted to do this, but I didn't think he was going to do it for a month or two. But on the third day, he came with his suitcase in the room and he said, Mother, I'm off. So since his mind was made up, I told him goodbye. He said nothing about re-enlisting in the Marines. No, the 3 days he was home, that was the conversation about him on a ship. I saw his passport, and his passport was stamped import and export on his passport. All right, she's bullshitting here because the person who got the passport in LA was the real Lee Oswald. It's the last photograph we will ever see of him. Well, unless you believe Robert Oswald and the date on the Robert Oswald photograph that has changed 3 times. The photograph of Lee hunting at the Mercer farm was first in his book indicated that it was February of 58. Then he indicated it was December 58. And then he indicated it was when Lee got out of the Marines at the end of September 59. Okay. That September 10th, 59 passport photo is the real Lee Harvey Oswald. So this is the false Marguerite Oswald. So what is she talking about? This is obviously some prepping that they did for her. Mr. Rankin then says, did it say anything about Soviet Russia on it? No. What I'm saying is that I saw the passport with big writing, export and import. I think it was blue. I did not read the passport because Lee was there, but I happened to see the passport, export and import stamped. Whether he had another passport, I do not know. I didn't ask. Saying this, and God knows I'm telling you the truth. I'm just this type of person. It is because of my life. Did you know that he spoke Russian at the time when he had this passport? No, sir, I did not know. The only time I knew that he spoke Russian is what came out in the news. But when I really knew was Lee's application for the Albert Schweitzer College. Shall we go into that application? Yes. Now for the first that I knew, no, I'm wrong. It is not the first I knew. I had received a letter from Lee while in the Marines before he knew of my trouble, stating that he was accepted by the Albert Schweitzer College and that the letter was in the sea bag that I told you about that I do not have. Okay, so we have some problems. Oh, here we go. Would you give us the date of the letter? And she says it's about May or June. And he goes, she says, this is March 22nd. I received this in care of Lee. And you see, sir, I have a lot of addresses because I'm now living in these homes. In 57 or 58? She says 1960. So, when was this is all bullshit, and I'll tell you why. Because she had her accident in 58, allegedly, and she had already been to court, and she already had a fucking settlement in the works, and this is 1958. And then it's not until March of 59 that Oswald applies to the Albert Schweitzer College. And then he's accepted in April of 59, which is weird. The whole thing with Albert Schweitzer College is the proof in the pudding that he fucking dipped not to go take care of his mother, but to defect. Mrs. Oswald then says, let's see now. Then I heard from the State Department in 1961. Due to a number of circumstances, we found ourselves forced to make a slight change in the arrival and departure dates of the third term. The first lecture will be held on Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, April 19th, instead of taking place on the 21st with the arrival day on the 20th. It will mean that the students arrive either on the evening of Monday the 18th or before noon on April 19th. This change, however, makes it possible to end the term on the weekend of July 2nd. We hope that you will still be able to fit this change of dates into your travel plan. Should it not be possible for you to arrive on the earlier date, we, of course, understand the difficulty. In the latter case, please drop us a line. So that's how I knew that Lee. I opened his mail. I didn't know whether my son was living or dead, and that's how I knew. I won't go into all this. He made a deposit. I have all of this for you. He made a deposit, and this is my copies to them. Now, one thing I've forgotten. While at the State Department told me that Lee had gone to Finland before Russia, and I did not know that. Now, Lee had applied to a college in Finland, evidently, because on the application it states such fact. I did not know because the paper just said he arrived in Russia until I went to the State Department. So what I'm trying to say, I may be forgetting a lot of important things because I'm just now remembering what the State Department told me. I don't think I'm forgetting too much, but after all, I'm going through a whole life, and it's very hard. This is Lee's original application that you cannot possibly have had. This is the only application there is, so this is something new for you gentlemen. I'm not going to go through it all because you have a copy, but I'm going to show you the thinking of this young man. Special interests: religious, vocational, literary, sports and hobbies, philosophy, psychology, ideology, football, baseball, tennis, stamp collecting. Lee had a stamp collecting book. See, this is another thing that I get kind of fucked up over because John Pick testified that he was a stamp collector. So were both of them stamp collectors? Why do you never hear about them trading stamps with each other? Why do you never hear any more aspects of this stamp collecting story, which started with John Pick? So maybe Lee did it because John Pick did it. But John Pick moved away in 1950. Lee was like 11. So, or even 10 maybe. So yeah, the whole stamp collecting thing to me is weird. And another kind of crossover with John Pick is that on the application for John Pick at the Bethlehem orphanage, she wrote on John Pick's application that he had like whooping cough and a whole bunch of other things. Well, Lee's medical school records later on listed the 4 things that were listed for John Pick, including whooping cough. So it said that Lee Harvey Oswald had whooping cough and 3 other ailments, but those are the 4 ailments listed on John Pick's application for the Bethlehem school. So what are we to make of that? That I have no idea. Representative Ford then says, this is an application to where? Mrs. Oswald says, this is an original application for the Albert Schweitzer School. Active part taken in organizations, student body movement in school for control of juvenile delinquency, member YMCA and AYA Association. That's an interesting statement. So this is a quote from the application. It says, active part taken in organizations, student body movement in school for control of juvenile delinquency. That's interesting. Is that when he became the school president at fucking PS 44 or 117 or whatever it was? Which makes no sense at all. Member YMCA and AYA Association. I don't know what AYA is. I don't know what that is. Where did you get this copy? I had contacted Congressman Jim Wright. That has helped me to locate Lee through the State Department, but Mr. Jim Wright was not successful. I was successful because of my trip to Washington, as you know. And from there to Washington, I went to the building where Mr. Jim Wright worked, and I went in to tell the secretary about the trip to Washington and that I had heard from Lee. Well, I had information here that Lee had paid a deposit, so I had written the school and asked if we were entitled to the return of the deposit since he didn't show up. But see, she's such a money-grubbing fucking whore. It's unbelievable. Not even her fucking money, and she's trying to get the deposit back. I fucking hate this woman. But I did not get an answer. So Mr. Wright's secretary said that, Mrs. Oswald, I will write and see what we can do. So she wrote, and then they sent the application and everything back to Jim Wright's office, and that's how I got the application. Mr. Doyle says, they may be interested in knowing where the college is. Mrs. Oswald says, it's in Switzerland. Albert Schweitzer College, Tschirt, Graubünden, Switzerland. Application form, high school, completed high school by correspondence. I have that. His original correspondence in the service, completed high school. Is that part of his Marine work? He finished high school in that way? Yes, sir. January 1958, passing 65 on a scale of 100 B+. College, none. All right, so that's bullshit. He didn't get his fucking degree. He didn't get his high school diploma in January of 58. He didn't get it till March of 59. Okay, but here we have another contradiction because Harvey Oswald, when he's in Russia and he wrote out his personal biography, he wrote that he got his high school diploma at the same time that he was at Biloxi up until the end of April in May and June of 1957. But that's a whole nother story. I'm not even going to talk about that. That's going to be in my book. Is that part of his Marine work? He finished high school that way. Yes, sir. January 58, passing 65 on a scale of 100 B+. That's not a B+, that's a fucking F. 65 is an F. Then I read his books. Now we go down to here. Vocational interests, if decided upon, to be a short story writer on contemporary American life. Now, general statement regarding reasons for wishing to attend the Albert Schweitzer College in order to acquire a fuller understanding of that subject which interests me most, philosophy, to meet with Europeans who can broaden my scope of understanding, to receive formal education by institutes of high standing and character, to broaden my knowledge of German, and to live in a healthy climate and good moral atmosphere. This is a very good thinking, gentlemen. We are getting a picture now of the boy which has been not told in the paper. I have read this one particular statement at 3 press conferences. The first press conference was about 80 members there from foreign lands and everything. Nothing was printed. Then I had a second press conference with 16 men, and I said, now I'm tired of the things that are being said about my family, myself and Lee. We're not perfect, but I know there is some good things, and I have read a particular statement that has not been printed. Let's see if the one you has the courage to print it. There was 16 there. That did not come out. I had a third reference, and I said the same thing and quoted this. That was not made public in the paper. I hold a lot of these answers, gentlemen, as you know by now. Mr. Rankin said, you noticed the next paragraph about his plans. Yes, plans to be pursued after the period at Albert Schweitzer College to attend the short summer course at the University of Turku in Turku, Finland. Now I have a brochure. This I cannot understand. From this college dated 1960. I have this for you, Mr. Rankin, dated 1960. Lee is in Russia. And the men in the State Department told me he went to Finland before Russia. But this is dated 1960. I have it for you. But I don't understand that. Then to return to America and pursue my chosen vocation. Mr. Rankin says, I want to ask you about that. Do you think he meant this at the time? I do not know. I am saying, and I'm going to stick to my story, that Lee is an agent, then a lot of this is a lot of baloney. I cannot make it any stronger. I don't know, sir. The boy is gone and I didn't hear from his own lips. You think he decided to defect after this application then? I do not know, sir, because I have not had this from the boy. I am speculating, but I have a lot of documents to sustain my speculation. Now, this you cannot tell one way or another about whether he's an agent by this. Miss Oswald says, I cannot tell you anything he is an agent. If you want proof. I'm becoming a little discouraged about this because I keep telling you, I did not have proof, sir, but I'm giving you the documents leading to it. All I'm trying to find out is what you have. You're giving us that. I'm also trying to find out whether whatever proof you have about these various things that we can rely on. Well, I'm going to state once and for all, because it upsets me very much emotionally, and I have stated before, I do not have the proof, sir. I do not have the proof of an agent. I do not have proof my son is innocent. I do not have proof. You don't have any proof of a conspiracy, of anything. It is just as I feel like Dallas police do not have proof my son shot President Kennedy. If they have anything, it is circumstantial evidence. I have as much circumstantial evidence here that Lee was an agent as the Dallas police have that he shot President Kennedy. Familiarity with foreign languages, if any. Russian equal influency to about 1 year's education or schooling. I also speak very little German. General condition of health good. Have you ever had any serious illnesses or nervous disturbances? No. And Mr. Rankin asks, is that correct? Mrs. Oswald says that is correct. I want to get that psychiatric. There will be a story there. Does such a condition still exist? Answer, no. I don't understand this, do you? General condition of health, good. Have you had serious illness or nervous disturbance? No. If so, explain. And then he has a dash. Are you at present receiving medical or psychiatric care? No. And then he gives, as a reference, you have this, so I won't go into it, a chaplain. Would you like me to go into all these names for the record? No, we can offer this. Did you know any of these people that he showed as references? No, sir, I do not. And this is dated the 3rd and 4th of 59. And this is another application form from the Albert Schweitzer College. I hereby do apply to attend the course from April 12th, 1960 to June 27th, 1960. Surname Oswald, Christian name Lee Harvey. Mr., age 20, mother tongue English. Other language you know, Russian, equal influency to 1 year of schooling. Occupation, student. Nationality, American. Exact address, MCAF, MACS 9. That's Marine Control Airfield of Marine Air Control Squadron 9, Santa Ana. It's a CIA fucking airbase, just so you know. And the Squadron Marine Air Group 3, which was in control of the CIA airbase, had previously been elsewhere, okay? And guess who was stationed with MAG 3 when it was stationed elsewhere? Robert Oswald. You fucking got it. So, MAG 3 is unquestionably a CIA-controlled operation within the Marines. Unquestionably. And that's where Oswald was for the majority of his time in the Marines. Well, he did, and I have this here, make a deposit of $25, which the school informed me that they would not be able to refund because it would take care of any incidentals that had occurred for him not appearing. Gentlemen, it is 10 minutes to 5. I believe I had a full day. I worked last night on papers. I came early to have copies made. This was a complete story, I believe, and I have at least 3 other complete stories. And I have a story of my life that I believe from newspaper accounts that you'll be very surprised to know the type of person I am. But according to the newspaper, of course, really nothing bad has been said about me otherwise than one particular instance. Then I can prove, and I have witnesses, that it is not the case. The chairman, Mrs. Oswald, you said you had 3 more stories. Just name them. Name what stories they are so we will know what they are. Yes, sir. It would be Lee's life, sir, from early childhood until the psychiatric treatment in New York that I want to tell you about. Up to 16? Yes, sir, because we have just finished that, because we went into that. And then my life from early childhood, which you have asked Mr. Rankin in a letter. The 3rd was that Lee is an agent, which I've gone into. Lee what? Lee being an agent. But I've already gone into that. So really, there's only 2 more. Yes, sir, my life and Lee's life. Now, I would like you to have this picture. If you had not seen it, and I will not comment on it, I want you to study it thoroughly. Use a magnifying glass if possible. And if you care to, we will discuss it. Now, this is out of the Post magazine. There's another picture that I would like to commission to get, which is in the memorial issue of President Kennedy. I think it is the Post. I will get that information for you. Would you like to advise the commission generally what you believe they will find from this? I would rather not comment on it at this particular moment. I submit it to them to look over all the people to study it. I have two. You may have one for the record. What is this purpose? What does this purport to be of? That's a picture of the book depository the day of the assassination of President Kennedy. And there are people in the picture. Well, is there anything you want us to see in this picture? Well, I would rather you see it for yourself. I see what I see. What do you see? Well, all right. I see Marina and the child, a girl and the baby. It could be Marina. Will you show us, please? And again, what I'm saying, I cannot be sure of this picture, but this right there, this girl with the baby could possibly be Marina and June. And this is the girl holding the baby. Right next to the door. Yes, sir, right next to the door. In back of her is the hat of a man. I have stated this. I will continue. The document referred to as marked Commission's Exhibit number 203 for identification. Mr. Chairman, may I offer this? Yes. I offer into evidence Exhibit 203. And that is the photograph that you were just referring to, Mrs. Oswald. Yes, sir, that's the photograph the day of the assassination, and you pointed out the girl on the left column of the entrance to the book depository holding a child. The document heretofore marked for identification as Commission Exhibit number 203 was received in evidence. Dulles then chimes in, do we know what time this was taken? And Rankin asks, can you tell what time this was taken? She goes, yes, this I understand was when President Kennedy was shot. He's supposed to be holding his throat here, and this is the car, and this is right after he passed the book depository, which is when he's supposed to have been shot. The chairman, very well. We will adjourn until tomorrow, 10 o'clock, whereupon at 4:55 p.m., the president's commission was recessed. All right. Picks up the next day, February 12th, 1964. The chairman says the commission will be in order. They do all their preamble. And let me see. Mrs. Oswald, did you have anything you wanted to say this morning before we start the questioning? Yes, I meant to yesterday morning. I have 2 or 3 other things that are worrying me. Mr. Rankin, on Monday when I testified that I had not been questioned officially, you told me that I had. And if I remember correctly, sir, you said that there was 28 pages of testimony. Or was it 8 pages? 28 pages, I think. Well, Mr. Doyle, as my attorney, I'm very concerned about that because I want to know if it is my testimony, because the little while the testimony that I gave to the FBI when I entered the courthouse was approximately 10 minutes. They immediately left to investigate. They did not talk to me again, sir. And then the only other testimony that I gave on tape was the starting of Lee's defection at the Six Flags Inn, which I would say ran approximately 10 or 15 minutes. And that's the only time I testified. Now, if you have all this other testimony from me, I don't think it's fair, because I should know what I'm supposed to have said. I need to know what I am supposed to have said. Mrs. Oswald, whatever we have there, we are told you we have said you and your attorney are entitled to see, but I will see that you can. We won't delay the proceeding this morning, but you may see it before you leave the building. Yes, it's very important to know that. Thank you, Justice Warren. The chairman, all right. Mr. Rankin says, Mr. Chairman, on that point, will it be satisfactory if we furnish a clean photostatic copy to Mr. Doyle? Yes, that will be satisfactory. Ms. Oswald says, I certainly need to know what I'm supposed to have said. There's an FBI agent by the name of Mr. John Fain. I will ask you, Mr. Rankin, if you have his address or if you know about Mr. John Fain. Rankin says, I know of Mr. John Fain as one of the agents that had some interviews with your son. Now, Mr. John Fain is the agent that I called upon myself after Lee's defection. I read where the Secret Service were investigating the family background, and I mistook it for the FBI. What? The Secret Service was investigating the family background? In 1959? Really? So I called the FBI and he came to my home. And he's the agent who recommended me talk to Jim Wright and Sam Rayburn as a friend and to write the letters. Now, the one point I'm going to bring out is this. When Lee returned from Russia and was at Robert's home, Mr. Fain, in the meantime, he had come over to Robert and talked to him several times to me, supposedly as a friend. He said he was not on the case. I do not know this, but he came to Robert's home and said, Lee, my daughter-in-law is a witness here. Lee, I'm not on the case, but I would like you to voluntarily come to the office at your convenience and tell me your story because I'm interested in your case. Your mother was the one who contacted me. And I've been to see Robert, and I'm quite interested in a young boy going to Russia. And you must have a story. So Lee voluntarily went to Fain, met with Fain at the FBI office. Then when Lee returned, his remark was, well, he didn't believe me. He wanted me to take a lie detector test, which I refused. Now, Mr. John Fain may have the story we're looking for, you see, because Lee went and gave the story. And I want to make sure you know where he is now. I have information from Senator Mike Mulroney that in March, I'm ahead of my story. Who the fuck is Senator Mike Monroney? Monroney. Mr. Mike Monroney needs to be fucking investigated. The FBI agents now in Fort Worth have told me they do not know Mr. John Fain. I said I happen to know that's his name. Well, Mrs. Oswald, I worked in this office for 9 years, and there's never been a such person as a Mr. John Fain. So I have investigated. And Senator Mike Monroney gave me this information. He did work in the Fort Worth office from March 49 to October 62. Excuse me. And then he retired in January 15th, 63. He's not a man to retire as far as age, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think Mr. John Fain is that old. We will check that out. I have his last address in Houston if you don't have it. All right, fine. Now, one thing that Lee, being an agent, I read, the neighbors that were interviewed in Fort Worth, Texas by the FBI, this is from newspaper accounts, said that Lee always walked a few feet in front of his wife when they were walking. And they wondered about that because it was very strange that he would walk ahead. I'm speculating maybe, but maybe there's a reason that Lee would walk ahead to protect his wife. This is my reasoning as an agent. The letter that is missing, and Mr. Doyle can verify this, the first letter that to Lee is missing, that Lee wrote to me, rather from Russia. And this letter stated, and it seemed to me, Mr. Rankin, and I have seen it in one of the magazines, and I have stated I have sold several of Lee's letters, and maybe in the rush, the letter got lost or stolen, I don't know. But his first letter, he told me not to send me any money. I repeat, do not send any money, and it is not necessary for you to pay me back. You could send reading matter. I am lonesome to read. Also, send a can of Rise shaving cream, a Gillette razor, and there was a book he wanted to read. I believe it was 1984. What date was this you sent that? This is a letter sent to me that is missing. The first letter that Lee sent to me. And why I sent the money, because I had used his income tax return, which was $33, because Lee was lost and I was destitute. And I knew Lee would never prosecute his mother for using his money because Lee would help me. You mean that was a refund? A refund. I got the refund and used it, sir. And all I used, Lee's first check came to the Marines, and I had no way of knowing where Lee was and used it. And so I offered to pay Lee back, and this letter had been printed. I've seen it, but I do not have it. So this is very important. As you had mentioned, you and I went through the papers that you had brought with you from your home in Texas to Washington, and we did not find such a letter among those papers. That is right. I have those letters laminated, and I didn't give a list. And if I was taken, I don't know what became of the letter. Mr. Liebler said that he had references to the letter. Mrs. Oswald, references. And I'm sure it was probably one of the letters I had sold you. I had sold, as I told you. Yes, sir, you're correct there. Now, there's another thing that we have skipped. While in Dallas 2 weeks ago, I had a press conference, and I called Jagger Charles Stovall, Inc., 522 Browder in Dallas. Now, this is a printing shop where Lee worked. Now, this is another thing. Rankin says, that was the photo engraving place that you talked about in your testimony. Photo engraving place. I talked to Mr. Stovall. Now, Lee was employed there. He informs me from October 12th to April 6th. And I asked him about a young couple coming to the house, if he was the father of the girl or if he knew of a couple who had the girl had a Russian father, the grandfather, and I testified. What did he say about that? No, sir, he said no, that he didn't know about that. He said this is the part that Lee had worked at a place prior to his place. That is not so, and I can prove it. I was an OB case for Mr. Rosenthal. Remember, she's a nurse here. We know nurse training ever, right? Overlapping with her working at a department store. I was on an OB case for Mr. Rosenthal. We will have to get a 1962 calendar. October 12th or thereabouts is when I was released from this OB case, and this is the Saturday I asked to get off an hour or two and went to Lee's house and saw this couple. So the one thing that's just jumping out at me, let me go back and reread this, because she just said that, so the first job he got when he came back was supposed to be at Leslie Welding, and then from Leslie Welding he goes to Jagger Charles Stovall, but she just said that he didn't have a job before Jagger Charles Stovall. So, what year? Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Okay, so we got a problem. We have a big problem. Unless I'm stupid, which I don't think is the case. But here we go. The problem is, let me see, where was it? She used the refund. Probably it was in those letters. 522 Browder in Dallas. So Lee was employed there, he informs me, from October 12th to April 6th. That must be October 12th, 62 to April 6th of 63. Because then April 6th, shortly after that, he dips and goes back to New Orleans. What else happened in April of 1963? The beginning of April 63. What happened? Well, actually, more like April 20th, 21st, something like that. What happened in New Orleans around that time, within 2 weeks of April 6th in New Orleans? Well, I'll tell you. It was Kerry Thornley. Kerry Thornley, who was impersonating Oswald, dips out of New Orleans and goes to Whittier, California. But on his way to Whittier, California, he goes down through Mexico City and then up the coast. Okay. He makes the same return trip in September, returns back in New Orleans September 4th. And how does he come? He comes straight down California into Mexico, goes all the way to Mexico City on a bus, and then takes a bus into New Orleans. Okay. Kerry Thornley will then return to Mexico City, posing as Lee Oswald at the embassy. And that happens on the 26th, 27th of September, while Oswald's still in New Orleans. So we have a major swapperoo going on here that none of us have been able to figure out. Not me, not Diana Thomas, not fucking Jim in my research chat, nobody. We're kind of stumped on this. A lot of shit moved when Lee Oswald went to New Orleans. Not only did Lee move from Dallas-Fort Worth to New Orleans, Robert Oswald left the Fort Worth area to go to Arkansas. Why? And then in September, when Kerry Thornley shows back up, well, Kerry Thornley's a fucking liar. We'll get into him another time, but he was back and forth between New Orleans and Whittier a couple times while he was never supposed to have been in New Orleans that whole time. Right? So why is it that you have Oswald going to New Orleans, you have Robert Oswald going to Arkansas, and you have Kerry Thornley, who was known to impersonate Oswald? Oh... And I realize it as the words come out of my mouth. Because Robert Oswald used to go by Lee. I've never really talked about this too much, but we have Diana Thomas found a bunch of references to Robert Oswald being referred to as Lee. And that makes a lot of sense because he took the name Lee after his father until Lee was born, right? And then once Lee was called Lee, Robert Oswald couldn't be called Lee anymore. Yet Robert Oswald actually had a book in his house that was seen by a reporter who flipped through some of his books, and it had an engraving to Lee in Robert Oswald's collection. And Robert Oswald justified that by saying, oh, well, I must have lent it to Lee, and he wrote his name in it. No. Robert went by Lee Oswald at some point in time in his life because his father did. But he couldn't do that afterwards. And he had to be called Robert again because Lee was Lee, right? Shouldn't that cause some resentment in a family if you're going by a certain name and then that name is given to the next child? Just food for thought. All right, let me continue on. Photo engraving place. I talked to Mr. Stovall. Now Lee was employed there. He informs me from October 12th to April 6th, and I asked him about the young couple coming to the house, if he was the father of the girl, or if he knew of a couple who had a Russian. The girl had a Russian father, the grandfather, as I testified. What did he say about that? No, sir. He said no, and he didn't know about that. He said this is the part that Lee had worked in a place prior to his place. That's not so. I can prove it. So she's saying that Oswald didn't work prior to Jagger Charles Stovall, which is false because he was supposed to be at Leslie Welding. October 12th or thereabouts is when I was released from this OB case. And this was Sunday that I asked to get off an hour or two and went to Lee's house and saw this couple. October 12th was a Friday. Well, a Friday. All right. So now let's see where I am. This woman would not give me the information of her last check to me. And I tried and I told her how important it was. It was a Friday. So then it would have to be then, Mr. Rankin, the week before, the Sunday of the week before then. Mr. Rankin says, that would be October 7th, 1962. Mrs. Oswald says, I'm still going to try to investigate this thoroughly because it's very important. He claimed that Lee worked another place first. Now, you know if Lee... well, let's don't. We will go into these things. But if you don't know, Chief Justice Warren, how will you go into it? The chairman, please don't turn this into an examining the commission. We will go into these things very thoroughly. Just go ahead with your story. Mrs. Oswald says, well, this is a lie, and I want to know about this lie. All right, you've told us. I'm not finished, sir. Well, you may go ahead and tell us what you want, but don't question the commission. That is the only thing I'm asking you. Well, I don't know about questioning. I think if you compose yourself, if you would, and just go ahead and give the commission all the information you have. Well, that's what I think I'm doing. If I'm doing it a wrong way, you will have to understand. I'm a layman. I'm the mother of this accused boy. I understand that this is what the commission is for, to get all information possible to come to a conclusion. And if I have found out that my date of employment is the date that Lee was employed in Dallas and this man said he worked someplace before, I think that this is very important information. We will check on that. Go ahead with your own story. Maybe I should apologize for taking so much of the commission's time. Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up with your goddamn preambles and your bullshit, okay, Mrs. Oswald? Just fucking spit it out already. You see what she's doing? This is obfuscation at the highest level. Go right ahead with the business and then give the commission the facts, and then the commission will take it from there in their own judgment. Mr. Doyle, while she is taking a moment, I will hand you a photostatic copy of this tape recording of an interview with Miss Marguerite Oswald. It purports to be recorded November 25th, 63, an interview by J.M. Howard. Thank you. Now, one thing we have not covered was Lee's discharge. May I interrupt just a minute? Is that the document we were talking about just a little while ago, a copy of which was to be given to Mrs. Oswald. That's right, that's the one requested, and the one you were speaking of, as a 28-page document. Yes, all right, now you may continue, Mrs. Oswald. Thank you very much. This is Lee's questionable, dishonorable discharge where I come in. The first envelope was addressed to Lee Harvey Oswald, airmail, and Lee was in Russia, as we know. We have the proof, and you have all the copies of this, I'm sure. Yes. And this you do not have. You have a copy now, but you do not have the story, Mr. Rankin. It states that the discharge by reason of unfitness, recommendation for discharge, reason of unfitness. Well, I wrote to the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, where is the copy of my letter? I talked to a commandant at the Marine Corps and read this to him, and he advised me how to write to the Marine Corps, the official of the Marine Corps, and that is a copy of the letter. I asked, well, he will give me the letter, I am sure. So then I will read my answer to my letter. I'll read the answer to my letter. Is that satisfactory? Yes. Mr. Liebler is going to get a copy that he is now. God damn it. We shut the fuck up. This is all bullshit administrative nonsense that they're talking. So let me skip over some of this. All right. Now, does this involve the question of the undesirable discharge? Yes, sir, it does. And did you ever write Secretary Connolly about that later, Governor Connolly? No, sir, I never did write to him. All right. Why don't you tell us what happened? I wrote a letter and was told how to write the letter, and this is the answer to the letter. I won't read it all because you have a copy, but I have a few points here to make. Do you recall who told you the name of this man? It was the Marine base in Fort Worth, Texas, one of the captains there. Thank you. Told me who to write to. You don't remember his name? No, sir, I do not. All right. The letter to Commandant Marine Air Reserve 50 JTMGR 26 April 62. To your son was prompted by his request for Soviet citizenship, and investigation concerning this matter has been conducted by military authorities, and the case will be placed before a board of officers, which will be recommended that your son be retained in or separated from the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve. Your son, of course, has the right to appear in person or to present any facts or evidence which would assist the board in reaching its decision. The letter of 26 April 1960 informed him of his rights. In view of the fact that he has not been informed, that he has not informed his headquarters of his current address, and that he has left the United States without permission, it is considered that a letter sent to the last address on file at this headquarters is sufficient notification. A letter will be sent by certified mail informing your son of a convening date of the board. Should you be aware of any facts or information which would assist the board in evaluating your son's case, it is suggested that you forward them to this headquarters. It is regretted that this action of this nature must be taken in your son's case. M.G. Letcher, First Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, Administrative Office, Aviation Class 3, Reserve Section. Now, my letter is important. Now, this was addressed to me. This is what I want the commission to know. This was addressed to Lee, the original. Then I wrote on behalf of my son, and this was addressed to me. Then I received a letter addressed to Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald. By now, I am corresponding with these people, and I need my letter, and I asked for the reason for the dishonorable discharge, and said that I would act on behalf of my son because I have pertinent information to the fact. Mrs. Oswald, I will ask the reporter to mark this as the next number. The document referred to was marked Commission Exhibit number 204 for identification. This is correspondence with regard to the dishonorable discharge. Will you look at a photostatic copy of that correspondence? Yes, that is just the letter I read. That is the back of the envelope and this letter. That is a very poor copy. Is this the letter we taped? I don't believe so, no. I know we taped one because we could not copy it. Can you read it? Yes. I desire to inform... Oh, is this your letter of April 10th, 60? Yes. And who did you send it to? May I say this, Mr. Rankin? We did tape that. I do have a transcription of it. Mrs. Oswald says, I ask for a stay of action and I will be willing to act in his behalf. Rankin says, Mrs. Oswald, I will hand you what I'm asking the reporter to mark as Exhibit 205. I ask you if Exhibit 205 is a correct transcription of your letter. Yes. The document referred to was Mark Commission's Exhibit number 205 for identification. Mrs. Oswald, I am writing you on behalf of my son. He is out of the country at present, and since I have no contact with him, I wish to request a stay of action concerning his discharge. Also, I desire to be informed of the charges against him. Please state reasons for such a discharge. After hearing from you, I will be willing to act in his behalf. So then comes a registered return receipt addressed only to Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald. Mr. Rankin says, now will you examine the rest of Exhibit 204 and state whether that is the rest of the correspondence in regard to the matter that you know about? This is addressed to me. This envelope is addressed to me. That is right, sir. And those photostatic copies in Exhibit 204 are all copies of your papers that you furnished to us that we could then make them. Is that right? Yes, sir, that's correct. I offer in evidence Exhibits 204 and 205. They may be admitted with those numbers. Mrs. Oswald says, I believe Chief Justice Warren giving information that this commission did not have before. I do not think they had this return addressee, which is important because after corresponding with me as Mrs. Marguerite Oswald, they sent the dishonorable discharge in Lee's name, addressed only when they knew he was out of the country. I would like to know why. See, it's so weird talking about herself in the third person, you know? All right. This looks like a good place. Actually, let me finish this page and then we'll wrap up for the day. Mr. Rankin says, what do you mean by that, Mrs. Oswald? Could you explain that a little more? Yes, I do not think they wanted me to have the dishonorable discharge. Again, they wanted me to be upset and tell people about it, but not have the proof of the dishonorable discharge. Don't you think it's possible that they felt he was the one involved and therefore they had to get the word directly to him for legal reasons? No, sir, because legally, I'm glad you brought that point up. Mr. Rankin says, I'm glad you brought that point up, Mr. Rankin. Your copies state that anyone can act in your behalf. As I read the copy, that I would be willing to act on my son's behalf, and I was making arrangements to get money and go there and act in his behalf because I had pertinent information, and they ignored my letter and sent this. Yes, sir. They may have felt you had not been given authority to act. Well, they may feel and what they should do, and I am saying I'm an American citizen and I have some rights. And when I want to act on behalf of my son, we don't know whether he's living or dead, then I should act on behalf of my son. I should not get a return. I'm glad you're bringing these points up. My rights have been invaded and my son's. I make that statement for the record. Now we shall go to Lee's childhood. All right. So that's where they break, and they are going to move into Lee's childhood, which should be an exciting episode next time because she shouldn't know anything about Oswald's life till 1945, till he's 6 or 7 years old. So they're going to skip over all that. They're going to skip over all the contradictory stuff about the two Marguerites living in two different places. They are going to cover up all this stuff, and so the next episode should be pretty exciting. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. Make sure you are subscribing to my World War II show on Substack. Get my book and all that other bullshit. You know me, I fucking hate marketing. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. I will be back on Monday. Thanks.